what we're looking at here is a firm, or all these firms, since this is a representative firm, we have a bunch of identical firms, all with these cost curves. Market price has been set here at P1, and we're all just sitting here earning zero profit. So that's going to be our long run equilibrium in perfect competition, all of our firms just earning zero profit. Now something's going to change in this market, and so could be any number of demand shifters. Something in the wheat market, we'll keep that example, causes a demand increase in wheat, and in the market that causes a price increase, so that's what sets the price. Our firms are all price takers, so they have no individual impact on the price. They're just going to take that price as given, so we now have a new price over here on our representative firm graph. So P2 is increased. Again, I usually draw these side by side so we can kind of see how they're related, but I'm just going to zoom into our firm graph. So I'm just going to write this as MR2, our new marginal revenue curve. We have a new Mr. DARP here. And so at P2, our firm is just going to take that price as given and decide what it wants to do, which of course is to profit maximize. So it's just going to set price equal to marginal cost, which means it's setting marginal revenue equal to marginal cost, and that's going to be our profit maximizing quantity. So first we get our quantity, right? We'd want to label that, and then we can figure out what our profit is, right? Remember, profit, we're looking at per unit here. So for each unit that I'm selling, I'm getting this price, right? My average revenue is equal to the price, and on average it's costing me this much per unit, and so that distance is going to be my per unit profit. So I'm just going to label that. So per unit profit times quantity, remember that gives me total profit. So which means the area of this rectangle here is the total profit of this firm. Now you have to be a little careful drawing this, because you should be showing that we're above that minimum point. As we go past that point, we're now above minimum, so it's a common mistake to draw this curve too flat and end up being on that same line here when you draw the profit. So give your ATC curve, when you draw these, enough of a curve so that you can show it like this, where once we move away from this point, we're going to be above that minimum, and so we should have our profit rectangle be above P1 there. So per unit profit times the number of units, we're making a profit here. Now, because perfect competition has free entry, and we are now making economic profits, this is going to attract firms. So we're now in a short run equilibrium where firms are earning profits, but that's not going to be a long run equilibrium, because other firms that are maybe growing some other crop or doing something else that has the potential to enter this business and say, hey, they're earning economic profits over here. This attracts firms because, again, economic profits means you're doing better than your next best alternative. So there are other alternatives, and now this alternative is doing better because of this demand shift, created profits. Other firms want to enter. And now on our market graph, entry of new firms is a supply shift. So more firms entering is a supply increase in this market. So here's where we were in the short run. Firms are making profits here at P2, and now as firms enter, it's going to be driving that price back down. Now, as long as firms have the same cost curves, which is what we're assuming here, that's what's called a constant cost industry. So we're going to have new firms entering, but we're going to assume that they all have the same cost curves, same marginal cost curves, same ATC curves. So as firms enter, that price is going to start falling, right? We're going to have a new marginal revenue curve falling as firms enter, and that price drops. As long as the price is still above P1, we're still going to have profits, which means firms are still entering, so it's not going to be an equilibrium until enough firms enter to drive that price all the way back down to P1, right? Once they do that, our marginal revenue curve just falls back to P1, and at P1 all of our firms are back to producing Q1. So each firm goes back to producing Q1, including the new firms. And in the market, we have a new equilibrium where we have more quantity in the market because we have more firms now that have entered, but all of our firms go back to producing Q1. So each firm is actually producing less than it was in the short run, But now we have more firms each producing Q1, which corresponds to this new long run equilibrium in the market with more firms. And because this was a constant cost industry, there's only one price that gives us a long run equilibrium, which is why we now have a long run market supply curve that is perfectly elastic at this price. So again, a constant cost industry means that all of the firms entering or all of the existing firms all have the same cost curves, which means there's only one place that can give you that zero profit equilibrium. And so wherever you are in the short run, if demand shifted here, I'd be here, but then I'd just be back here in the long run because I would have to be at that price to give me zero profit. So in the long run, I'm always going to end up back on this curve, no matter what happens to demand shifts in the short run. Short run, I got to here, but long run, I'm back on my long run supply curve. So these are short run supply curves, which I'll come back to a little bit later. But in the long run, we have to be back on this line if it is a constant cost industry. So we're going to see a variation of that a little bit later. Okay, so that was a demand increase. Right, we had a demand increase, we had firms making profits in the short run, but in the long run, firms have to be at zero profit because we have free entry. As long as there's free entry, if there's profits, those profits get competed away, and we're back to zero profit. And as long as firms are identical, which is generally what we're assuming.